Hey, Rick.
Hey.
I lost my thumb. Look.
The old jokes
I,
are the
I think
best, huh?
I think you need some comic relief at this point, huh?
Oh, I think so. I
Mania
don't.
Mania.
It was some kind of meltdown, but we're here and
Wasn't
let's.
our meltdown. It was some server going
Uh,
on break.
well, no, I think it's possible it was the vMix here because when I rebooted, everything just kind of cleaned up. But it's really hard
That
to.
damn Sputnik again, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Sputnik. And maybe, you know what? Solar flares. I am blaming solar flares. We're supposed to be going into a period of that now, aren't we, Rick?
Well, Mercury's in retrograde too, I heard. So
Yeah, but that's always the case. I think Mercury's always in retrograde. So,
somewhere in the universe.
Rick, you'll find this interesting. You probably already know this. I got about 8/10 of an inch of rain yesterday, which I'm very happy about, which matched what Midway got. So I was in that same path. But
I,
Peggy,
I send you guys a map that shows all the detailed rain. You may want to check your email. It may be in there because I got a feeling you may have gotten more rain, Mike, because the rain was coming down sideways.
Yeah, and right by the lake there was no rain.
now,
Yeah, yeah. In fact, up in areas of Lake County, literally from where you are pegged northeastward or right along the lakefront,
Waukegan, yep.
was like literally less than a tenth of an inch. We got about three-quarters of an inch here in Evanston, an inch and a half at O'Hare, 2.49 in Elk Grove.
Wow.
It looks like about an inch south and west of Midway Airport. So you're right, Mike. Looking at some of these totals, you probably got about 8/10 of an inch. Yeah.
yeah, and
And he had a downspout misadventure in the
Yeah,
process.
my downspout came off in the middle of it, so on the back porch. So I was up there reaching around and getting soaked from my downspout, which was that was an adventure. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I was happy to get wet. It was nice to actually have rain, and I
Dancing in the rain, yes.
and I guess the question is it going to make any difference to get an inch of rain in certain spots? And I would hazard to guess that the answer is no, really, because Peggy didn't get anything, and there's still areas that didn't get anything at all, really.
Yeah, and it was interesting because I sent an email to a friend of mine who's an agricultural meteorologist, and he sent me some really amazing stuff, which shows not only the areas that got rain, but the precipitation above or below normal over the last 30 days, with layers of the highest producing counties in Iowa, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Minnesota of corn. So one of
Hmm.
the things we do, what's called GIS, which is Geographic Information Systems, is that we can actually layer different regions of how much precipitation you're supposed to get, how much you actually got, and then the areas of concern. And right now, um, most of Lake County and McHenry County got probably like literally less than a tenth of an inch of rain over the last couple of days, whereas areas out by DeKalb, Western Cook, Queen, Kendall, those areas got, in some areas, almost 2 to 3 inches of rain. So it depends on where you were. The good news is that where they really needed the rain, in some of the far western sections of the Chicago metro area, meaning the Corn Belt areas, they got the rain. And
Hmm.
this is a really sensitive time to keep not only the ground or the topsoil moist, but to keep the evaporation rates from exceeding these really, really high levels that we've had over the last couple of days. Do you know on Wednesday, Mike and Peg, Rockford got up to 97 degrees. On Thursday, they got to 99. I have never
Wow.
seen such locally high temperatures due to the fact that the ground was so dry. You
Hmm.
literally almost had like a suburban or rural heat island where the ground was basically like concrete. And because you're getting so warm, obviously the evaporation rate's really high. So, in some way, shape, and form, the 2 to 3 inches of rain in the Corn Belt areas of Illinois helped out a lot. However, if you go into Western Illinois, they got nothing. You got most of northern Iowa, they got nothing. And parts of southern Minnesota and southern Wisconsin, they got nothing. So, this was feast or famine, but it was more famine than feast.
You mentioned that those temps, and I saw that the other day. the Rockford 99, and I thought that can't be right, because the other temperatures were in like the low 90s, 91, 92.
Actually, McHenry did make it up to 95, and Elgin was 96. So when I
Okay.
look at that Rockford number, I'm thinking, first off, they're probably going to go out there and measure or recalibrate the thermometer, because both of those measurements did break a record. And whenever you break a record, you recalibrate to make sure, or not recalibrate, but you calibrate it to make sure that it's a true record. So I would not be surprised if the Weather Service goes out there and calibrates it, but it's not like this came from a podunk airport.
Yeah.
Rockford's, it's got pretty decent, ASOS equipment, and I would not be surprised if that record stands. What's interesting also is that the 1.5 inches of rain that O'Hare got yesterday was a record for the day. So we had not had a drop of rain at O'Hare for literally 3 weeks, and we get it all at once. It's a record. And then, I don't know if you noticed this also, Mike, because you got 8/10 of an inch of rain. We had about a half inch here in Evanston, and the sidewalks were flooded because it came down so hard. The ground was so hard, it couldn't soak into the ground, so it ran off.
Yeah.
So this was almost the type of rain that you don't want during a drought. You want a nice, steady soaking, because most of the rain probably ran off back into the sewers.
Yeah, that was what the guy was saying last night on CBS, and I was impressed that he really was paying attention to the drought conditions and the idea that, boy, wouldn't it be better if we got a nice gentle rain? But we got what we got, and this is what you sent me. Oops, I thought that I had that set up, but let's go here. This is the radar.
Yeah, isn't that great?
This is and it was funny because about 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon, I took a screenshot of radar myself, and then you sent this, so I thought I'd go with this. And there was this blob over Chicago, and pretty much nowhere else, as you're seeing here. And that was amazing to see. It just and I went back and looked at the radar as it developed.
The loop,
yeah, the loop. At 1 o'clock, there was nothing.
No.
And then suddenly there was this. So,
if you look at the bottom of the screen there, and this is really good, kind of tutorial for your listeners. It says storm total accumulation. So what the Doppler radar does is it can literally catalog where the precipitation was moving, how much was coming down, and if you just basically go into the program and say, tell me how much rain fell at the time, it'll literally give you that information. So at the bottom of the screen there, it says 2210, and 2210 is actually 5:10 in the afternoon. So if I would have ran this out to about 6:30 or 7 o'clock, it probably would have shown more rain across southern Will and Kankakee County. But the bottom line is you can actually look at the colors in that area of northeastern DuPage County and western Cook County, and there's one little area of like a yellow, and that corresponds on the right side to about 2.56 inches of rain.
Yeah.
So the fact that someone's rain gauge said 2.48 and it says 2.56 makes not only the person who has the rain gauge happy, but also the Weather Service happy, because it means both pieces of instrumentation are the same, which means that's how much rain fell. But again, if you can find your area where you live, you can see that you got literally 0.1, if that 0.05 inches of rain. You probably heard a lot more thunder than you saw raindrops. Yeah, a lot of thunder. And again, all of this was built off of the lake breeze. So the fact that we had this weak cool front passing through the area, and you had the lake breeze, where the lake breeze intersected the cool front is where you had the thunderstorms develop. Now, back on Tuesday and Wednesday, the upper level winds were basically out of the east, so any storms that developed went west. Now when the upper level wind northwest, any storms that developed along that convergence zone basically moved from the northwest to the southeast. And as typically is the case, if you have light enough winds to have a lake breeze push that far west, typically the winds in the upper level atmosphere are just as light. So you're going to get very slow moving, drenching downpours. And that's exactly what we got yesterday. So in these type of situations, if after a while as a meteorologist you kind of know what type of scenario you're in, you know that the rain you're going to get is basically slow moving, isolated, heavy rainfall, that's going to benefit very few people.
I want to show you something. I put this up last week, and I want to do this comparison. And I set these, and of course they're not working, but there we go. Here's the U.S. Drought Monitor, and look at the date on it, June 2nd, 2020.
Yeah, last year.
Yeah, this is something you wrote to us about because there was an article in the New York Times this week looking at the drought conditions over the last 20 years, and you wrote back to them and said, "That's not a long time." I thought that was pretty funny that you did this. And then if you look at the comparison, that's last year. This is this year. And you can see that's quite a difference. Let's go back. That's last year. The Midwest, obviously, not much going on in the Midwest there, but this year, that's
and we've been talking about this for 3 months because we knew that they had dry conditions last year. They had dry conditions in the fall. They had dry conditions in the winter, and I kept saying if they don't get some sort of organized rain in March, April, and May, by the time we get to June, this is going to become a national news story. And now everybody is covering it. But I thought what was most amazing, Mike and Peg, was not only was this a story on the New York Times climate website, if you go to today's paper, they literally have every single one of those maps of the last 20 years on the cover, the front page of the New York Times. I've never seen this before. Yeah, and I think what they're driving the point home is that when the Republicans came back with their plan for infrastructure, they said, "Why is there climate change funding in infrastructure? Climate change has nothing to do with infrastructure." And I'm thinking to myself, are you guys on another planet? Have you seen what is happening out in California with their reservoirs, with the fact that now you have the grid system being stressed, where you have 6 million more people living in that state? Have you looked at the areas of Lake Mead? Have you looked at the Glen Canyon Dam? All of that is infrastructure that is being impacted by short-term extreme weather events caused by a changing and more variable climate. So if they pronounce themselves to be conservative and thinking about the environment, that's not being conservative, because someone who is conservative learns how to conserve the environment, not use it up for what it is. So when the Biden administration and the Obama administration thought about climate change from an infrastructure plan, it means building things that will become resilient to an extreme climate. What's going on in California right now is the fact that they are not going to be able to get through this unless they start to think being more resilient from an infrastructure plan. And I know California is doing it, but the fact that the Trump administration said it'll get cooler or we'll rebuild, that's not thinking right. What Biden is doing with his infrastructure plan, putting funds in there for climate change, is the smart approach. Whether or not he's going to get that with the compromise deal is another thing.
Yeah, let's look at this, and I'm sure this is not going to. Yeah. It's, I don't know, and I set it up, and then
it works.
It's working. But there you go. This is the Midwest drought map, and it has expanded over the last week. Are you okay? I'm.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, all right.
So again, when you talk to a farmer, if a farmer knows that they're going to be in for a hot, dry summer, they know that they're going to plant a certain type of crop, drought-resistant, heat-resistant. That means that from an infrastructure standpoint, a farmer is thinking about how to be more resilient to extreme climate. It's the same thing, whether or not you're building something or growing something. It's all about the infrastructure plan. So the fact that these Republicans, and I wish I could call them someone else, but I'm being nice because it's Sunday, we're on live broadcast today. The fact that they go, I can't believe the Democrats put something in there about climate change in an infrastructure bill. It's part of it. It's part of the whole freaking plan, that when you see that much drought now, even if you compare it to 2000, California had 32 million people. There's now almost 40 million people in that state. You have more houses, you have more stores, you have more restaurants, you have more demand on electricity, and now you have much less water than you had before. So in effect, if you're carrying a jug of 50 gallons of water, in the year 2000, you probably had literally only 40 gallons of water. Now you have probably only 30 for that 50 gallons of water. So we need so much more help from a standpoint of infrastructure for the future when you start to think about some of these extreme weather events, which are clearly impacting the largest state and the largest agricultural state in the United States. We haven't even talked about that yet. You know, when people think drought, they go, I won't be able to water my lawn. I won't be able to, you know, go to the tap and just go like that with a glass of water. But think about the farmers. If you want, next week I could do a little bit more digging. We could talk about that because we've been kind of focusing about here in the Midwest. But we could easily talk about what's going on.
And high water crops, too.
Absolutely. If you're driven across the Sacramento Valley in like the month of August, you don't see just one row of corn that's 6 feet high. You see one that's 2 feet high, 4 feet high, 6 feet high, because they literally plant almost 10 months out of the year. So that's that much more intensive from a standpoint of demand for water than we have here in the Midwest, kind of like what Peg was alluding to.
Yeah. And I've seen stories about where they're ordering people to stop watering lawns in
oh God,
certain, yeah.
That car washes, you don't see car washes. They have these big like sweeping brooms that basically brushes the dust off your car. Forget about car washes. So no, I'm serious. You know,
I've not seen that. This is something new to me. I've never heard.
Yeah. There's no car washes in California during this time of the year. It's all like you see these brushless car washes. They have waterless car washes in California this time of the year. It sounds weird, but it's a big freaking deal, and it's something that we've seen for the last 3 or 4 months. They've been knowing about this for a long time. Here though, our drought, I still think for the Chicagoland area, we're going to get through this okay. It's more so the areas west of DeKalb, Kendall County, Iroquois County, LaSalle County. Those are the areas that are going to be somewhat impacted. But the bottom line is what the recent rain did, it'll slow down the evaporation rate. The good news is that we head into a cooler pattern as we transition into the forecast. One cool front came through. You can tell that the dew point temperatures are much lower. I think the dews right now are in the upper 50s. Yes, at this time they were probably around 70 degrees, so we'll get a little bit of a break on the humidity, but then a second cool front comes through tomorrow, and we'll see the temperatures most likely really drop off along the lakefront, down probably into the low to mid 70s. The good news is that I've been swimming in the lake every day. It's almost 70 degrees right along the shoreline.
Wow.
It's about as nice as it can be.
I saw 67 Wilmette Harbor the other day.
Yeah, and I think the other day they had almost 70 degrees, especially in the morning when you have these warm nights. Once you get a little bit of wind going, that temperature during the day will actually come down a little bit.
Yeah.
But I would not be surprised if over the next 5 days we see temperatures right around maybe 80 to 81 degrees, so almost 10 degrees cooler than what we have been. But more importantly, between now and most likely the next 7 days, that much rain. That's it. We're right back into the.
I've got this map that you sent of the 7 day precipitation, and if it's light green, it means.
This is the forecast. It is a forecast.
Right. So very little, little bit up in Wisconsin and into Michigan too, which is not a bad thing.
Right. But again, if you look at what's really interesting, what my friend does, who works in the agricultural field, what they'll do is they'll take the data from this level or from this layer, and they'll overlay it on the areas that have been in drought, and then overlay it in the areas where you have corn. So then you can give the user a much better way of seeing where it's been dry, where there's corn, and how much rain is going to fall over the next week or so. And if you take this layer and you put it over the areas that I showed you earlier, it's bad news. Just about everybody who needs the rain over the next 7 days is not going to get it. And you're going to see temperatures exceed 115 degrees in places like Vegas and Phoenix Their normal high this time of year is about 102 and 103, and their record's about 110 to 111. And this is just bad news. And it's only June 11th. This is not July 11th or
Yeah.
August 11th. It's June 11th. We have easily June, July, and August. We have 3 months of this.
Yikes.
So anyway, going back, I know because we got to get going here. Going back to the email that I sent to the author of the article for the New York Times,
Yeah.
I haven't got a response. Sure, I will. I just basically said, look, 20 years of drought data is really not a lot. You got to go back 100 years and then see these trends. In addition to that, look at the trend also demand of agriculture, as Peg was alluding to, and then look at the demand of population. So you can actually look at population centers, and I'm probably giving her an assignment she really does. She's like, you're not my editor. Who are you? But I think it'd be kind of interesting. But I think it'd be kind of interesting to show how you can layer different areas of where the drought has been and where it's been in the last 20 years and where it's going to be more concentrated from an impact standpoint, meaning population growth, agricultural growth, and more so electricity growth. And one of the things I teach in my climate change class is that most of California gets their electricity from hydroelectric power. When you have those reservoirs going way down, what happens to your ability to produce hydroelectric power? That goes down as well. What do you end up using to generate electricity? Natural gas. California has very little in the way of coal. Like literally 5% of their power comes from coal. So what you're going to see is a spike in natural gas prices due to the fact that their ability to generate electricity from hydroelectric power goes down. I've seen this before, and they're going to start grabbing electricity most likely from Oregon and also from Washington State as well. So California did it right years ago, where Texas did not. Remember, Texas is by itself. California is gridded with everybody else, like every other smart thinking state. So they'll be able to get their power from other states, but the bottom line is, when you don't have the water in the reservoirs, you don't have hydroelectric power. And since they get most of their electricity from hydro, what do? You have to switch over to natural gas. So you'll probably see a spike in natural gas as well.
And do you anticipate that spike in natural gas prices to be countrywide or just in California?
You know, it depends, because as long as you are able to continue the delivery in certain areas of in other words, if the Northeast, which is what they have, then you're going to see a drop off in demand there. And then you'll see that shell game push west. Since we'll get a drop off here, you'll see that shell game push west. But I would not be surprised if it starts to get warm again, basically Midwest and Northeast, spike most likely probably by, I don't know, the end of the week. But it'll definitely come very once the demand goes nationwide. Right now the Northeast is cooled off, which is a good thing because they were in the 90s as well last week.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's give us a forecast and we'll get out of
All
here.
right. If you're inside today, you're a loser. It's about as nice as I've seen around here in about a week. Absolutely picture perfect. Dew points in the lower 60s today. Temperatures in the lower 80s. Second front comes through tomorrow. That'll send off the lake. So we'll have a nice breeze coming down the lake. The good news is that the lake is warmed up along the shoreline. However, you'll notice that if you do go in the water today, it'll probably be about 68 degrees. If you go in tomorrow, it'll be about 65. And you go in on Tuesday, it'll be about 62. It's going to have to get mixing. So the cooler water is just offshore. But still, if you can get down to the lakefront today, it's gorgeous. And then literally dry weather, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Could be some lake effect clouds, as we've seen off and on the last couple of mornings. But other than that, no rain between now and probably, I would say, next Friday. So the next 5 days look to be rain-free. I know in the areas that got the rain, the grass greened up. And I don't know if you noticed this, Mike.
Yeah.
Did you notice that smell of ozone and nitrogen in the areas?
Yep.
Right, Peggy?
Yep.
Even where it didn't rain, and probably where it didn't rain, you probably smelled it even more so, right, Peg?
I think it's the whole area, probably.
Yeah, it's amazing. It was almost like someone cut open an onion and just went like that into the air. It was kind of cool.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be a beautiful week, so enjoy it if you can, and let's hope we get some rain next weekend.
I'll do another dance for you.
All right. Appreciate it. All right. Talk to you then, Rick. Take care.
Thanks, Rick.